Few things we need to reset in our mind. Some statistics we will discuss, some numbers we will discuss. It is it's about a 9-month program that we have, correct? July we started, 10 months, almost 9 months and 20 days. So we will consider it as 9 months, 20 days we will consider it to be extra time. So in those 9 months we are done with 3 months. We have 6 more months, a little over 6 more months. So that 20 extra days is there. 16 days is there, 4 days we have done. The target is 600. 1/3 of the program is done, and most of you have been able to touch 200. Right? The last 3 months for most of you has been writing notes. Correct? Writing notes. And in the interaction that I had, most of you have not done enough revision of the notes that you have written. So you have been writing continuously, even till the session before the test also. If you have test in the afternoon session, on the same day, morning 6:30 to 8:30 also, you have been writing notes. Not revising it enough. It's okay, because the first priority was to ensure that all of you are through with your notes. The most challenging, the most challenging phases of notes preparation is over. Syllabus map would be the most difficult thing for you to do, because you are not used to creating frameworks. Throughout your student life, you have been preparing notes, not preparing notes, you have been using notes given by your teachers. Yes or no? And what kind of notes? Have you got any other kind of notes other than question and answers throughout your student life? Some teachers might have given you, some of them would give summaries, one outline, all that would be given. But now you have been doing notes in multiple perspectives. One is syllabus map, the outline framework. With whatever I have discussed so far, all those with whom I have discussed, they have done the syllabus map well. Level 1 notes also has been done recently. Now you are working on the perspective notes. One mistake that many of you are doing with the perspective based notes. The 0 to 100 is the syllabus. From nothing to the entire syllabus, complete syllabus of all the 3 subjects. So first, what should you do? You should do syllabus map from 0 to 100. That means you completed syllabus map for all the chapters of all the 3 subjects. So you completed one loop of 0 to 100. Second, you did level 1 notes from 0 to 100. All the chapters of all the subjects, level 1 notes completed. That means you covered the entire syllabus second round. Third, you are supposed to do perspective based notes. Perspective number 1 should be glossary. You should have done it 0 to 100 in book 1. Alright? Now you are realizing what the mistake you have done. I have told this multiple times. Then I'll talk about, let's say, we'll say physics. The second one would have been physics, loss. From 0 to 100. Perspective based notes means the entire notes will be in one perspective. So if you take out that book 1, we are talking about perspectives of physics, the entire book will have only glossary entries. Only the terms and their meaning, So when you revise, see, understand something, the mind needs to be trained. Training of the mind happens by allowing the mind to remain in a particular frame for sufficient period of time. You cannot shift frames. You cannot shift frames too frequently until the mind gets used to a particular frame. So if you have 0 to 100 glossary, that means glossary, a book of glossary of all the physics terms of the entire syllabus, 11th and 12th, all chapters put together, that book will have only glossary entries. Then when you revise for about 2 to 3 hours or for about 1 to 2 hours, you will keep your mind on the language of physics. Only glossary, you will revise only that, all the glossary terms of the entire syllabus. How many laws are you studying in physics? Chapter 11th and 12th put together, how many laws are there? Can anybody tell me the number of laws that you will study in physics, the name of those laws, and what it states? Wouldn't it benefit if you have all of that in one place? Will there not be questions related to multiple laws, theory based? Many of you are struggling with physics. If you are just completely thorough with the language of physics, you know the meaning of every term that is there, every physics term that is there in the entire syllabus of 11th and 12th physics. Will you not be able to answer good number of questions? How many questions you will encounter where you don't understand what the word is? It happens, no? If you can just understand what the word is, you will be able to answer many questions. If you can just know what are the different laws that are there, what else is there in physics? The entire discussion of physics that you will do is based on different laws. Correct? Different terms. If you know what speed and velocity are, if you know the difference between speed and velocity, you will know the relationship between speed and velocity. Correct? Whether speed and velocity, which one is a scalar quantity, which one is a vector quantity, which one is a bigger set if you want to consider, which one includes, which one has constancy, which one is variable, all of that is understood if you know the terms. So this is how you should have made perspective based notes, 0 to 100. So when you are doing this, you have about 5 perspectives for every subject, correct? Physics, glossary, laws, diagrams, formulas, and tables and flowcharts, all of that if there are some tables and things that there will be. For chemistry also you have many of those. You have glossary, laws, reactions, then laws and theories. Glossaries, laws and theories, reactions, what else in chemistry? Formulas in chemistry also. And you have diagrams in chemistry, tables, flowcharts and all of that. Biology, glossary is common. Whichever subject you study, understanding the language of the subject is the foundation. You are familiar with the language of the subject, you will be able to perform better on the challenges related to that subject. But there is no problem. You have many of you have done all of this in one book. Correct? You have done chapter by chapter. You have not gone perspective by perspective. Though I am very sure that I have told it multiple times. Because I have been telling these things for years and I have been doing it for years. So it's okay. Getting confused is fine. Now, how do we correct it? How do we correct it? When you revise, you have one book for perspective based notes for physics, one book for chemistry, one book for biology. When you revise, don't revise everything of one chapter and move to the next chapter. Let's say in this book you have written all the perspectives. This is one chapter. You have glossary items, maybe some 20 terms you have listed. Then you have written down some diagrams. Then you have written down some other things, table, all of that. That's what you have done now, many of you. When you are revising glossary, look at only glossary, skip the rest of the things, move to the glossary of the next chapter. Skip the rest of the things in the chapter, move to the glossary of the third chapter. Go on like that. Until you revise the entire glossary part, don't look at diagrams or tables or anything else. Alright? Instead of keeping it in one book, you have, in a sequence, you have done it chapter by chapter. So while revising, revise perspective by perspective. Is this understood by everybody? Do you understand? So this is done. So what is happening is, the good thing that has happened, and I am happy with the scores uh, all of you who I have spoken to, the rest of you also I speak to, have moved significantly higher from where you started. You started at whatever the number, the score on the first test. Now it is very good. Good, even if it is 200, 160, 180, good, don't worry. You have crossed the most important phase, notes building. So this is good. All of you have this done. All of you have completed this over. This is ongoing. This is ongoing. The deadline for completing this was 31st October. I'm sure nobody would be completing it by 31st October. Or if there is somebody who is completing it by 31st October, very good. So, consider a short-term extended deadline to be November 15th. And the final deadline to complete all of this to be November 30th. At least by November 30th, finish it off. Why? I'll tell you. Give me one assessment booklet. One assessment booklet. See, 28th of October will be the last weekly test. From 1st of November, the test frequency will be one test every 4 days. One test every 4 days. Resident faculty should keep revising these things. You should keep looking into these things and reminding students about these sequences. Okay. Some statistics are there. Okay. Now you are done with all this, no? You are done with all this. Let us say by 30th November, you are done. How many tests would be complete by 30th November? Look at it. 24. You would be completing 24 tests by the end of November. How many more tests will be remaining? How many more tests will be remaining? 40, not 48. 38 tests, 38 more tests will be remaining. 24 will be done by 30th November. You will still have 38 tests pending from 30th November onwards. With all this, have you all been sincere enough to make the syllabus map detailed without leaving out any concept or sub-concept? You all have done it? So that means your syllabus map has the outline of everything that is there in NCERT. Yes or no? Have you all expanded the syllabus map to a certain extent while making level 1 notes? In fact, I have seen some of your notes. You have expanded it more than what level 1 should be. Correct? The problem is not knowing where to stop. But you have done it more. So considering the extent that you have built your level 1 notes, the pace with which you are moving is good. No worries. There are some concern areas also. I'll tell you the concern areas and how to work through that. Alright. So level 1 notes will have an outline of something of everything that is there in NCERT. So these two will be foundation of outline of NCERT, foundation of NCERT. Perspective based notes will be, the clarity on everything that is there in NCERT. Yes or no? When you put out a table, you are comparing multiple things that are at different places in one place. So you are gaining clarity of the concepts. When you look at diagram, you are gaining clarity. With glossary, you are becoming more and more confident with the language of the subject. Yes, in physics and chemistry, with the formulas, you are more and more confident of, you are becoming more stronger with using the tools to solve problems. Whether you will be able to solve problems or not is dependent on other things also, but you are at least equipped with the tools. With all the laws being at your fingertips, you understand physics. You can see the laws, something, how does the electricity flow through this? There are thumb rules, no? Right hand thumb rule, left hand thumb rule. If you know what that right hand thumb rule is, left hand thumb rule is, you can see all those here. First thing is to learn it. You have to learn it. So you will be comfortable with all that. So these things, these notes will be your NCERT mastery notes. If you are thorough with whatever you have built, master NCERT. Yes or no? Because you have not left out anything that is there in NCERT. and you have distributed it in different point of views. So you look at the same thing from multiple points of view. That is the ability which is required to do well in your entrance exam, your NEET final exam. Alright? So this is done. We had our phase 1 adaptation and acclimatization phase that went on well. You got it. I am 100% sure that all of you would have had doubts about what I was suggesting you to do. Unfortunately, this is a free program and your parents have taken it and you also feel that let us be in one place and prepare. You all started with doubt. But as you kept doing it, the faster you overcame those doubts and submitted to the process, the better has been your performance. The longer you have taken to submit to the process, the slower has been your growth. But whether you have resisted or whether you have accepted early, everybody has grown from where they were to where they are now. Alright? All of this works. At least by now, everybody should drop all doubts from your head and just stick to what I tell. 1/3 of the time is over. We still have 2/3 of the time left. October 31st should have been the end of our preparation consolidation phase. What is preparation consolidation phase? We are consolidating the material required for preparation. This is the material. So we are, but because none of you were familiar with any of these processes, even if you complete the preparation consolidation phase by end of November, that is good. That is good. Alright. Imagine this process being trained. Imagine I train on this process for 2 years. Somebody completes their 10th standard and comes into a residential +2 program. The first 6 months they are being trained on the process. And the next 1.5 years they will build on it and perform. 600 is cakewalk. Alright? Why it doesn't happen for most of the people is because people don't focus on process. People focus on statistics. Coaching centers and all the results are statistics. If 10 out of 100 get ranked, that is success of the institution. But for me, 10 getting ranks and 90 not getting ranks is failure of the institution. Success of the students. But no, I am responsible for what happens to majority of the people who have submitted to my process. Anyways, so by 30th November you are done with this. Post-test analysis notes is not happening at a good pace. It is not happening at a good pace. Most of you are stuck with 3 papers, 2 papers, 4 papers, 5 papers. The highest I think is some 7 papers. Has anybody done 7 papers post-test analysis? 6 papers? And why do I remember 7 papers? If somebody did lie. 5 papers. Anybody completed 5 papers? Some of you completed 5 papers. So highest is 5 papers. Understandable because most of the time has gone into this. It's fine, no problem. Okay. Now, complete this. 30th November you are done with this. To improve the scores now. Till now, I am okay with the ups and downs of the scores. But by now, from now onwards, post October, your scores will stabilize. Your scores will stabilize, the ups and downs will be marginal. Gradually, you should keep moving upwards. Okay. On the day of the test, when are you having the test? You are having the test between 1:45 to 5:20. Correct? You are inside the examination hall from 1:45 to 5:20. So you have 2 plus 3 hours before this. 2 hours, 6:30 to 8:30 and 9:30 to 12:30. 2 sessions are there before this. -1. That is the day before the test. How many hours of self-study time do you have per day? 8.5 hours of self-study time you have. 3 hours of teacher engagement time you have. -2. The last study session, that is 9:30 to 11. 1.5 hours. Alright? What you have built in the form of your notes is powerful. You should start experiencing the power of your notes now. Because you are too engrossed in making those notes, you did not use the power of that by revising it. From now onwards, starting from this Monday's test, Monday onwards, I will change the class timings from 9:30 to 5:30 in the evening. Alright? Reason I'll tell you. I want you to do 15 hours of revision before every test. What do you revise? You will revise only your syllabus map, your level 1 notes, your post-test analysis notes, and whatever perspective notes that you have built. Only your notes. For 15 hours before the test, you will not do any notes making, you will not do any new learning. You will practice revision. Understand? So do we have 15 hours? 1.5 plus 8.5, 10, 12, 15. Monday is the test. So today, evening 9:30 to 11, the entire day tomorrow, 2 sessions on Monday, 6:30 to 8:30, 9:30 to 12:30. Only revision of your notes and take the test. Do this for every test. We are done with 14 tests now. We will leave out the 15th test. Let us assume that the 15th test we don't have 15 hours of revision time, but do revision. So consider tomorrow you don't have 8.5, you don't have 11.5 hours. You have 6.5 hours. Correct, no? 2 sessions, one 2-hour session and one 3-hour session is waived off. So you have 6.5 hours of time tomorrow. Today 1.5 hours, 8 hours. Monday 5 hours. That would be 13 hours. 13 hours time is there, not 15 hours. Revise for 13 hours and then take the test. Repeat for every test. Alright? We have only 2 more tests left for weekly test, and after that it will be 1 test every 4 days. So, the first test of November will be on 1st November. Correct? The first test will be on 1st November. So if we are looking at 1 test every 4 days, how much time do we have? The next test will be 5th November. Correct? On 5th November, how many hours of time do you have to revise? 5 hours of revision time. On 4th November, you have 8.5 hours of revision time. On 3rd November, you have 1.5 hours of revision time. The balance is 7 hours. This is building time. That is whatever notes you build or post-test analysis you do, all of that should be done in this time. On 2nd November, you have 8.5 hours. On 1st November, you have post-test. On 1st November, post-test you have about 4 hours. Correct? 4 hours. Because 5:30 you will, 5:20 you will end the session. Then it starts at 6:45, 6:50, 6:50 to 8:30. That will be 1 hour 40 minutes and another 1 hour 30 minutes. So we can consider it to be 3 hours. 3 hours. So 3 plus 8.5 plus 7. How many hours? 18.5. You have 18.5 hours of test to test. Preparation for exam is strategic. No emotions attached. No doing what I feel like doing. No. Strategy. You should have clarity about what will happen if I do this. Alright? So when I give you numbers, just follow. 18.5 hours of preparation, 17 hours of revision. November and December. November and December, 2 months. You have only 18.5 hours between tests to build your notes. In November, you will still be making your perspective notes. So you will not have much time to do your post-test analysis. But post-November, after November, all the time is available only to make post-test analysis notes. Right? January onwards, you will not have this because the test will be once in 3 days. So you will not have an additional 8.5 hours. Test to test, you will have 10 hours of preparation time, 15 hours of revision time. So that 10 hours you will utilize for post-test analysis. 10 hours you will utilize for post-test analysis. January, February, March, 10 hours of post-test analysis, 15 hours of revision. Alright? You will see how you will become masters of what you are preparing. Okay? Stick to this. Don't get distracted. If whatever is possible to prepare in those 10 hours, that's all you will prepare. Don't get carried away. 15 hours revision, don't compromise. Now, in these 15 hours, what are you revising? You are revising your syllabus map, level 1 notes, prospective notes, post-test analysis notes. You have to practice to revise your entire notes in 15 hours. It's possible. It is possible. For the month of November and December, you can consider 12 hours of revision for your NCERT based notes and 3 hours of revision on your post-test analysis notes. Got it? So in 12 hours you try to complete 4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours. You get 4 hours for biology, 4 hours for chemistry, 4 hours for physics. Because it is the notes that you have written, in 4 hours you will be able to browse through. You should practice to browse through the notes that you have written. Is that clear? You will be starting to do this from test number 15. Test number 15 to test number 62. How many tests? 47 tests. Let us not consider till test number 24. Till the end of November. Till the end of November we would have completed 24 tests. 24 only, no? So we will consider it from test number 25. 60% would have been forgotten by 7 days. You will leave it for another 7 days. It would be as good as new. What you have learned 15 days, 20 days ago, you take it again. If you have not revised it, it will be new. You have to relearn it. That is what happens when you go chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter. If I have given you 2 chapter test, 3 chapter test, by the time we complete the entire syllabus, what you started with would be new again. You do it for 10 years, you will still not be prepared. You have to start with the full syllabus and you have to do something about everything every day so that you stay in touch with everything on a continuous basis. So what we are doing, when you revise before every test, you should have done this even now, but it's okay. I did not want to push you on focused revision till now because I wanted you to complete most of the notes. I knew that you are not revising from the notes, but it's okay. If I had pushed you to revise 15 hours, then completing your notes would have gone till December. That is a bigger risk. I want more time to revision for revision. It's okay even if we lose some revision time now because you are building it. It's okay. Now what we will be doing in November and December, revision is happening once in 4 days. Once in 4 days. Before it starts declining, you are again reinforcing. Before it starts declining, you again reinforce. Memory is like that. You don't reinforce, it will decline. Forgetting is a very powerful mechanism that we have. It's a natural process. Otherwise, we will not be able to survive. We have gone through so many bad things in life. So many pain that we have gone through. If we don't forget, we can't live. So forgetting is a protective mechanism. But before the memory starts decaying, we are reinforcing. So it becomes stronger. We reinforce, it becomes stronger. We reinforce, it becomes stronger. And this kind of reinforcement will happen 38 times. Okay. Don't compromise on this now. Just do it. Just do it. Don't bother about what notes I will give, what notes the senior faculty will give. No. What you have prepared. Have you prepared it sincerely is my question. Have you prepared it sincerely? All of you? Stick to it. Parallelly, you are doing post-test analysis notes that will cover all the other things that NCERT might not have, which might appear in the question paper. That's all. Alright, we'll stick to this till the end of March. Till the end of March, this is the same process. 18.5 hours of preparation, 17 hours of revision, not 17 hours of revision, 15 hours, no? 18.5 hours of preparation, 15 hours of revision till the end of December. November and December, both months. January onwards, it will be 10 hours of preparation, 15 hours of revision between tests. 10 hours of preparation and 15 hours of revision between tests. Revision is more important than preparation. Whatever you have prepared, you should be able to use it fully. Okay? No deviation from that. Is this clear? Rest of the things will take care by itself. Take care of by itself. So your scores will improve. Now start doing this. November and December will see significant improvement in scores. All of you should be able to cross 350 to 400 consistently by the end of December. If you have reached 350 to 400 consistently at least twice or thrice until December end, by December end, feel good about it. You have progressed. Because the second, that phase will be preparation, mastery phase. When you are mastering your material. Then January, February, March will be high intensity preparation. High intensity preparation will push your performance much higher. So by the end of March, all of you should have crossed, all of you would have crossed 600 multiple times. By the end of March, all of you would have experienced a score of 600 plus multiple times. April, we will not have any test. April is to continuously revise again and again and again and again whatever notes you have taken. The purpose should be, by the end of March, you should be in a position to say that you have completed post-test analysis of all the 62 papers. If you have not completed, stop doing post-test analysis from 1st April. Whatever you have done, that's all. The entire month of April should be for only revision. Revision of your entire notes. Starting from syllabus map. Always start from there. Syllabus map, level 1, perspective notes, post-test analysis notes. All the 4 is one cycle. Alright, you understand? So we are considering 15 hours of revision before every test. Let us consider by the time we reach April, the volume will be so high, so you will require about 20 to 25 hours to revise. That means you can complete the revision of your entire body of material that you have built once in 2 to 3 days. You understand? Zero test, no test. 11.5 hours every day. We will bring down the no need 11.5 hours. You will play till the last day. You will play. The day before exam, you will play well, sleep well. No change in routine. Routine will still remain the same. So once in 3 days, if you complete your revision in April, complete revision of all your notes 10 times will be done. If that is not enough to take you through, then probably God has other plans for you. Alright. But what you go through and what you learn, how to deal with challenges and how to prepare, how to build on stages of preparation for a bigger challenge, that ability, this is skill development. This is not just giving you tips and tricks for cracking exam. This is life skill development. That will save you forever. Okay? So, follow it and we are good. Another challenge some of you have faced. This is clear? This is clear? There should be no confusion on this. Next time when I talk to you, maybe after one-to-one after about a month or so, you should not say I am not revising, sir, I am still working on my own plan. This everybody should follow. Is that clear? Very, very important. Strategy. All of you will get it. Another challenge many of you are facing is Physics. Single digit scores. Attempts, number of questions attempted, 2 questions, 4 questions, 5 questions. Physics and mathematics are subjects. I have been very strong in both the subjects. Though I don't teach physics and mathematics now, I can talk with some authority of being an excellent student of physics and mathematics. Having been an excellent student of physics and mathematics, okay? Physics and mathematics are 2 subjects which will make your ego get boosted. Correct? In biology and the theory aspects of chemistry and physics, you don't get ego boost. Either you know or you don't know. You are able to answer or you are not able to answer. If you are able to answer, you feel good. If you are not able to answer, if you do some mistakes, you will feel bad. But physics and mathematics will give you a kick. So the tendency for most of the self-respecting students is to get validation for their abilities by solving complex problems in physics and mathematics. Right? We want to solve complex problems. Problems which others are not able to solve and I solve it. We have seen that in movies also. Somebody comes and solves a big problem on the board. Everybody is like, wow. This is the trick used by physics and mathematics teachers to get very high pay. They get paid very high. I get paid more. Alright? Anyways, that's not the point. Avoid the ego trip during your preparation. Ability to solve problems comes with the strength of concepts. Solving problems is not about being able to use formulas. Solving problems is about using the concepts to arrive at a logic to approach the problem and using the relevant formula which will help you tackle the problem. So it is not like if this is the problem, this is the formula that you should use and this is how you get the answer. You should be able to transform or translate the numerical problem into a logical question, logical situation, and you should be able to bring together the concepts which will help you tackle the logic behind the problem, and then you have to extrapolate into formulas which can be used to solve this problem. And many times complex problems will require multi-stage problem solving approach. Different stages will require different concepts and different formulas to be applied to move on to the next stage. If you are trying to solve problems, numerical problems, without an adequate logical backup that you get by strengthening your concepts and fundamentals of the subject, you are wasting time. You may be wasting 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours, an entire day on one problem. Wanting to experience that eureka moment, drop it. Drop the solving of all numerical problems. Don't solve any numerical problem in physics and chemistry in your post-test analysis until you are confident with the concepts behind the problem. You should be able to explain the concepts of physics and chemistry. You should be able to explain the logic behind physics and chemistry concepts before you start applying the formulas to solve problems. So what you do, when you do post-test analysis, that is where your post-test analysis is also stuck up. Yes or no? You are trying to solve problems in physics. You are wasting time on that. You are not able to solve it. 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours gone. You have committed too much into the problem. Now you can't back out also. It will be it will be humiliation. Your ego can't take it. Bloody, I have spent about 6 hours on this problem. Now I cannot get back. Either I will solve it or I will die solving it. No? Don't get emotional about problem solving. Be strategic about your approach to preparation. Revision of your syllabus map, level 1 notes, perspective notes, in physics especially, the language of physics, complete your glossary, understand and memorize every word that is of physics. Understand the language of physics. Be able to converse in the language of physics. List down all the laws that is there in your textbook. If you are just browsing, laws will be highlighted only, no? It will not be hidden in some middle of the paragraph. If there is a law, it will be a heading and it will be explained properly in the textbook NCERT. Make a list of all the laws. Glossary, laws, formulas, rules. Laws, theories and rules, all three is one. All the laws, theories and rules of physics. One cluster. Glossary is one cluster. Laws, theories and rules is one cluster. Formulas is one cluster. Until you become confident of all these three of the entire syllabus, don't touch any problem. It's okay. Nothing will happen. If you have the understanding of the subject, glossary, you know all the laws, you know all the rules, you know all the theories, you know all the formulas. It is just another step to solve the problem. It becomes natural. You will be able to naturally solve the problem. Chemistry also, glossary, get thorough with the glossary, understand all the laws, rules and theories that are there in chemistry textbook also, understand all the formulas, whatever formulas are there. It will not be as many as what you will find in physics. Memorize all the formulas, all the reactions in chemistry, all reactions that are given in NCERT book. List it down. Keep reading it repeatedly. Keep revising it repeatedly. Master it. Then as an extension, once you have mastered all of this, as an extension, go into numerical problem solving. I would suggest, considering what stage most of you are in with physics and chemistry, I would suggest for the next 2 months, till the end of December, don't solve any numerical problems. I'll talk to Chakraborty sir and Rao sir also. Don't solve any numerical problems. Take it as a target to master whatever I told you now with physics, glossary, laws, theories and rules, formulas, whatever is there in NCERT. Chemistry, glossary, laws, theories and rules, formulas, reactions. Master this. Anything out of this on the question papers, don't touch it, leave it. Leave it for later. Post-test analysis also, deal with only this, only the theory components, which you should be able to just see where I should find an explanation for this. Go to NCERT, find an explanation for that, understand it. If there is something to be added to your notes, add it. If you don't find it in NCERT, pull out one of the books from the stack of books that you have on your table and pull it and use it. In post-test analysis, what will take more time is trying to solve numerical problems. You don't know how to go about, you try to solve it, you get stuck up, you try some other approach, you get stuck up. Don't do that. Build confidence. Life is a game of confidence. The more confident you feel, the next step becomes more exciting. You are trying to experience the 10th step when you are on the first step. It becomes very difficult. You are trying to take a leap to the 10th step. You fall on 4th step, you fall on 5th step. You are not able to reach the 10th step. Take one step at a time. To know what is the steps is the challenge. I am telling you what are the steps. Do this, you will be sorted. Next 2 months, till the end of December, don't touch any numericals. In the meantime, sir, please train them on mathematics, the fundamentals of mathematics. Work out a scheme of things. I can also give a list of topics that needs to be dealt with to help them do well in 11th and 12th physics. With respect to physics, I will also give a list of topics. We will run it with Chakraborty sir also. We will all sit together. We will sit together and make a list of topics. So for the next 2 months, half an hour every day, mathematics, which will help physics and chemistry both. Alright? Is the plan for the next 2.5 months clear? Stick to it. The phase of preparation consolidation has been fairly successful. Okay? Applaud for yourselves. Clap for yourselves. Imagine you have got a medical seat and in your place people have gathered, and on the stage somebody is announcing, she has got a medical seat. Maulana Azhar Medical College and audio. Hard for yourselves. Come on. I know people of Meghalaya are very mild and calm, they are in a Zen state, always meditative. But I have also seen the same people shouting in such high volume that I can hear it from Bangalore. I have heard your voice. I can make out your laugh from a distance without seeing you. Correct? No, she laughs out loud. See? It's okay. So this is the plan. Stick to it. December review. When we sit back to review in December, everybody should have crossed 400. Revision plan will help you cross that. Okay. 600 will come one step at a time. From 150, 200 to 600 is a long distance. We will take steps. Crossing 400 and staying there, hitting 400 consistently is the next target. Alright? For those of you who are at 150, 200, apply the same rule. You will cross. You will cross. Okay? So these things, because this is a recurring problem, I discussed all of this personally with many students when I was having one-to-one discussions. I thought the common things I will tell it out to everybody so that we can discuss some specific things. Revision management, I told you. Perspective learning should have been done in different books, but you have done in one book, no problem. While revising, revise perspective by perspective. Until you finish one perspective revision, don't take the next perspective. It's okay, turn the pages and go on. There is one request by many students, which I am still not sure whether I have to agree to that or not. A 10-minute break in a 3-hour class. But I can't give that during study time. Is that okay? Because during study time, you have to sit for 3 hours without even taking a washroom break. That is your training for exam. You are sitting in the examination hall for 3.5 hours. No? So, 3 hours you should be able to sit. Okay, let me think on that. 10 minutes break during class time. I am considering it, so the request has been successful in making me consider it. Physics I have told you, and somebody asked me about how to go about studying the textbook. It's like this only. The entire syllabus map, level 1, look at it from different perspectives. Whatever subject you study, whatever book you study, to get a framework of what is there in the book, to know something about everything in the framework, understanding what are the perspectives from which you can look at it, and looking at it from those perspectives in a sequential manner. One perspective completed, another perspective completed, another perspective. So it's like taking it stepwise, so that you go more deeper also without overburdening your mind. So, revise entire notes before every test. That's very important. And while going through your exams, while practicing the exam, some wrong practices, bad practices, I'll tell you, you should avoid that. You might be used to doing that, but avoid it. You get 15 minutes time to look at the question paper, correct? Before you write the exam, 1:45, you get the question booklet, and you are supposed to fill all the details, not to look at the question paper. Anyways, some students have the habit of going through the entire paper before they start answering. Wrong. Don't do that. Don't waste time in looking at the entire paper. To look at 200 questions is impossible, and come back and solve it is not possible. So when you look at the question, you should make some calls. Okay. Practice this from this test. If you have any of these bad habits, overcome the bad habits. As soon as you look at it, questions, which part you want to handle, that is your choice. Whether you have some people will handle biology first, some people will start with physics, some people will start with chemistry. That is what is comfortable for you. But questions have to be looked at in different levels. Number one, when you look at the question, you know that you can solve it in 30 to 40 seconds. So questions that can be solved in 30 to 40 seconds. This is the stage 1 questions. This is the level 1 questions. You have to solve all of them first. You know, when you look at it, you browse through the question. Within 5 to 10 seconds, you will be able to browse through any question. That's all the time that is required for a practiced student. Student who has practiced, within 5 to 10 seconds, you can run through the question. You know you can answer it right away. Answer all those questions which you can answer right away, where there are no calculations required, where there are no formulas to be applied. All the simple, straightforward, theory-based questions from question number 1 to 200 completed, level 1. So these are questions which will give you score, and you don't have to put too much time into it. So 30 to 40 seconds questions, these are. Level 2. Questions with simple calculations or logic. It is not straightforward, but questions which you have to apply some logic to arrive at an answer, or you need to do some simple calculations. Okay? You have to make note of these things. This is level 2 questions. First you will do all of these kind of questions, then you will do these kind of questions. These kind of questions should normally take you around 60 seconds. You should be able to do it in around 60 to 70 seconds maximum. There will be good number of questions which you will be able to solve in 30 to 40 seconds. There will be enough questions which you will be able to solve in around 60 to 70 seconds. Then level 3. Calculation based or complex logic. This might take you around 90 seconds. You might need about 1.5 minutes to solve these kind of questions. There will be complex logic. You have to do some calculations. You have to apply some complex logic to arrive at answers. These kind of questions will be found more in physics, to an extent in chemistry. On biology also, where there might be multiple things, twisted language twisting, all of that is possible in biology also. Confusion can be created in biology also. Then level 4. Multiple concept or advanced calculations. Requiring more than 90 seconds. So you will have questions which you will be able to solve in 30 to 40 seconds, or you can say less than 60 seconds. You will have questions which you can solve in about 60 seconds, about a minute, which will be simple calculation based or simple logic based questions. There will be questions where you need to have some good amount of calculation and there is complex logic involved. And a very few number of questions which will have multiple concept related questions with advanced calculations required. And it is not like these questions will come first and these will come next, this will come. It's all mixed. It's all mixed up. It's all mixed up. When you are tackling the paper, don't be with the mindset that I will complete physics first and then go to chemistry. I'll complete chemistry first and then go to physics. I'll complete the entire biology first and then go to the next. Like we do with the notes. How do we do? One perspective for the entire syllabus. Now you have to do a perspective based approach to tackle the question paper also. You will go with identifying all the 30 to 40 second questions and complete it. Finish it first. From question number 1 to question number 200, your task is run through and complete all the 30 to 40 second questions. Understand? So you can use pens to mark the questions. Which one you have to take up in the second round, which one you have to take up in the third round, which one you have to take up in the fourth round. Try to identify questions on these parameters. Then you are marking it. As soon as you see the question, you realize this requires some complex logic, 3. This requires some thinking, not straightforward. I'll come back in the second round, 2. Move to the next one. So this has too many things. I'll go back to it in the fourth round if I have time. 4. Mark it. Keep going. Complete all the first level of questions. You understand? And as soon as you go to the question, and this is one thing. Make note of it. Please note down. Alright? And once you look at a question, see it is look at the question, identify it, analyze it, solve it, arrive at the answer, mark in the OMR sheet and move to the next question. Mistake number 2 students do. Mistake number 1 is trying to solve every question in a sequence. First question, what if it is a level 4 question? You are committed to solving it from the first question. So you stick on to that, you spend 5 minutes on that, over. 5 minutes will start making you restless. No. So, you have to mark in the OMR sheet, you should not leave it. Mistake number 2 students do is marking the answer in the question paper and trying to transfer all of those answers onto the OMR sheet at once. Some students feel, I got the answer, it is option number 2, option B, I mark it in the question paper. If I try to bubble it in the OMR sheet, I will waste time. Instead of that, I will go to the next question. I will mark the answer there in the question paper. Next question, I will mark it. And at a time, at once, question number 1, C. Question number 2, D. Question number 3, C. Question number 4, A. 1 at a time. As soon as you get the answer, you have to mark it on the OMR sheet. Don't do bulk marking on the OMR sheet. When the mind is in stress, the chances of questions jumbling up is very, very high. If it just jumps by one number, you are marking answer of 3 in 4, answer of 4 in 5. The entire paper will be screwed up. Don't do that. Every time you are marking the bubble, look at the question number on the question paper, look at the question number on the OMR sheet and mark it correspondingly. Do it religiously. Don't take the small things for granted. You understand? Keep track of these 2 things while you practice every week. For every test, take this approach. Now for the Monday test, you have to do 2 things. Starting from today's last session, till the second session on Monday, you will only revise your notes and attempt the paper. And while you are attempting the paper, you will follow this format. You will follow this format of identifying the questions and approaching the questions. And as soon as you get answer to a particular question, you will mark the OMR sheet. Will you do that? 3 things to take care during the exam. Every time you have to tell yourself these things. Every time a checklist. What to do, what not to do in the exam. Every time that checklist has to be gone through, so that it becomes automatic for you. And even during the actual exam, you have to run through that checklist and cross verify. Alright? So let us not lose by oversight or blunders or some small things. That's it. So, we'll go to biotechnology. Is this clear? This is for the next two months, 2.5 months, till the end of this semester. Biotechnology. Technology and biology. Biology is the science of understanding life. Technology is with the sole purpose of making use of knowledge for human welfare. Correct? Is there any technology just for the sake of enjoyment? Why do you create technology? You create technology to make the life of human beings easy, simple. You create a bulb, not just to play, to use it. Even playing also is an aesthetic purpose, is a happiness purpose. So whatever technology is created is used for the purpose of making human life better. Now biotechnology is using the knowledge of life to benefit human beings. What knowledge of life are we considering? The knowledge of genetics, knowledge of genes, understanding of how transmission of characteristics happen. Is making curd biotechnology? The knowledge of lactobacillus converting milk into curd is being used to make curd. The knowledge of yeast being able to bring about fermentation and make the dough soft is used in making bread. That is also biotechnology. But what biotechnology are we talking about here? We are talking about genetic engineering. We are talking about genetic engineering. Engineering is to design and redesign and create and manipulate. Engineering is for the purpose of creation and manipulation. Correct? Genetic engineering is manipulating genes and creating new combination of genes. Yes or no? Manipulation of genes and creating new combination of genes. Why should we do it? Genes form the basis of existence for all organisms. Yes or no? Different organisms have different genetic framework based on their evolutionary history. Humans have been trying to kill bacteria for a very long time, since the time humans got an understanding of the production of antibiotics by bacteria which can kill bacteria. Knowing very well that antibiotics are both offense and defense of bacteria. Bacteria produces antibiotics to kill other bacteria, so that in the same medium, one type of bacteria which is capable of producing the antibiotic can have better access to resources. That's all. No? So it's like competition. In competition, the chances of your survival in competition is also dependent on the other people being below you in terms of performance. When you have access to resources, let's say if there are 10 people and there are 8 positions available, all the 10 people will be telling the people who will choose them why they are better than the others. Okay? Is it enough if you come and tell me what your strengths are and let me decide whether you are better than the others? Is it enough in a competitive situation? The competition demands that you also tell me why you are better than the others, why I should consider you in comparison to the others. I can also make out, I can also think about it, but will you let me think about it, or do you want to put those thoughts in my mind? Don't put those thoughts in my mind. Similarly, bacteria are microorganisms. They grow in medium. Why do they grow? Well, what kind of medium do they choose? Given an option, a bacteria would want to be in a medium which has high resources. What resources do bacteria want? Do they want money? What do they want? They want Food, nutrients. Not food, they want nutrients. They want access to nutrients. Any substratum, any medium in which there are nutrients available, bacteria would want to grow. How much do they multiply is dependent on how much is the resource availability. Correct? That is the limiting factor. The limiting factor for the multiplication of any organism is the availability of resources. If resources are available in an unlimited manner, every organism will achieve its optimum reproductive potential. Correct? Every organism will reproduce unlimited according to its reproductive potential. Bacteria, they say the replication time is about 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes bacteria can double. It can undergo fission, it can undergo division, and it can double. That means in about 300 minutes, that is in about 6 hours. 300 minutes is 5 hours. In about 5 hours, bacteria could undergo 10 cycles of doubling. 10 cycles of doubling is 1024. 2 to the power 10 is 1024. 1024. A single bacteria would have become 1024 bacteria in a span of 5 hours. If the medium is infinitely available for the bacteria to multiply. That means if you have a million bacteria in a particular small culture, a million bacteria also will not be much bigger. It might be a small microscopic droplet. A million bacteria would become 1,000 times, that is, it becomes a billion bacteria in a span of 5 hours. But that doesn't happen in reality because it is not only that bacteria that is in that medium. There are other bacteria also. Why am I talking about bacteria? Bacteria is the hero in our genetic engineering. The hero of genetic engineering is bacteria. That is the protagonist. So this is the introductory scene for the protagonist. We are establishing the character of the protagonist. Alright. So the other bacteria also is trying to grow. A small medium, resources are there. One colony of bacteria trying to multiply. Resources are depleting. Another colony of bacteria is also trying to multiply. Conflict, competition. Competition leads to conflict. When the conflict is there, what will the bacteria do? Will the head of this colony and that colony sit together and come into an agreement? Shimla agreement? Indus Water Treaty? No. They will just try to eliminate competition. In nature, conflict arising out of competition will lead to elimination of the weaker competitor. That is nature. Correct? The weaker, if there is a conflict because of competition, the conflict is for elimination. The resolution will happen with elimination of some of the people in conflict. Now, both the colonies of bacteria will try to eliminate the other. What are they doing to eliminate the other? How do they eliminate the other? Do they bring out daggers, stones, petrol bomb and all that? No. They will just produce antibiotics and attack. Chemical warfare. They are producing antibiotics and attacking the other colony. But this antibiotic can attack themselves also. If a chemical can destroy a bacteria, I am also a bacteria, I can also be destroyed by the same chemical. So what should I do before I actually produce that chemical to kill somebody else? I will protect myself. How? I protect myself by developing resistance to the antibiotic that I am producing. So the antibiotic that I produce cannot kill me because whatever is the mechanism that is there in that antibiotic, let's say that antibiotic can go and attach to some sequence of DNA on the other bacteria and destroy that sequence, thereby fragmenting the DNA and killing the bacteria. I will shield that sequence in my DNA. I'll create a protective covering around that sequence in my DNA so that I don't get attacked by that antibiotic, even if it is there with me. You understand? That is the antibiotic resistance. Now that bacteria, will it just go down and die? If I had the ability to produce antibiotic and develop resistance Another bacteria also has that ability or might have that ability. Now, has that ability cannot be told. We cannot say every bacteria has the ability to produce antibiotic. Why? Why? If I say every bacteria need not have the ability to produce antibiotic, then you have to tell me what is it that will give bacteria the ability to produce antibiotic? What should the bacteria have to have the possibility of producing antibiotic? If I am a bacteria, even if I should have the possibility of producing antibiotic, I should have something. And what is that something? Enzyme. Antigen. No, antibiotic production is not like a immune reaction. Tell me.
Competition, sir.
Competition. Okay. Competition will trigger me to produce antibiotic if I have the ability, and I will produce antibiotic if I have the ability. Correct? It's like somebody comes and claims my house to be their house. Okay. They have come, 10 people have come into my house and they are telling me, get out, this is our house. Whoever it is, what the person wants to do, what would you want to do? Somebody comes into your house and tells you, get out now, from now on, this is our house. What would you want to do? Resist. Given a choice, what would you want to do? Kick them out. Bloody, what do you think? Come. In your mind, you will be doing that. Correct? But whether you will actually do it or not is dependent on your ability to do it. Okay. When there is competition, the bacteria want to produce antibiotic and kill the competition. But whether it will actually produce antibiotic or not is dependent on whether it has the capacity to do it. And what is the capacity? Immunity. Immunity is higher animal concept.
Genetic material.
Genetic?
Genetic material of the...
Genetic material. What is the genetic material that the bacteria should have? Plasmid. What is plasmid?
Extra chromosomal.
See, if this is a bacterial cell, the bacteria is prokaryotic, so it will have some random linked DNA, that is its genetic material. And it can have circular DNA, which is plasmid. This every bacteria will have. This is DNA. This is the bacterial DNA. This is also DNA, but this is extra nuclear DNA, you can say. There is no nucleus here, but you can say extra nuclear DNA, or which is external to the genetic material. This is plasmid. Now this plasmid can multiply by itself. The multiplication of plasmid is not dependent on the multiplication of the cell, but this will replicate only when the cell is dividing. If this genetic material divides into 2 copies, then the cell is dividing into 2. Without the cell dividing, the plasmid can make copies. That is called copy number. Plasmid has something called copy number. There is a segment on the plasmid which will determine its copy number. So that copy number will decide, if triggered, how many copies can this plasmid make. If there is a trigger to make copies, it can make those many copies. If the copy number is 10, if the stimulus is there, the bacteria can produce 10 plasmids in one go without the cell dividing. Alright? So this is a powerful tool that bacteria have developed. What is the tool that bacteria have developed? By evolution, plasmid. 3 important genes also, but these 3 important genes, whenever they are present in bacteria, will be present on plasmids. Number 1, NIF gene, nitrogen fixation gene. Nitrogen fixing bacteria, rhizobium and other such bacteria which fixes nitrogen. The nitrogen fixation gene is present in the plasmid. Okay. Antibiotic resistance gene is also present on the plasmid. Antibiotic resistance gene is also present on the plasmid. Alright. So this nitrogen fixation gene, antibiotic resistance genes are present on the plasmid. The third gene I forgot. I said I will recall. Okay. But for now, antibiotic resistance gene is present on the plasmid if at all it is there. So if I am capable of producing antibiotic, I will also have the resistance to that particular antibiotic in the form of a gene on the plasmid. Is this much clear? This is the story. I will tell you biotechnology like a story. Then what you read from your book will become more easy to understand. It's a story, it's a sequential process. You understand why we do it? We have that term. Purpose, design, action or function, PDF. So the first hero that we have to go, the first protagonist we need to know is plasmid. Clear? Now, there is another ability in bacteria. Okay, now I will extend a little bit more on antibiotic resistance. There is a war going on. There are two colonies of bacteria in the same medium. Resources are limited. They decide now we have to kill. Now this fellow starts producing antibiotics. Those fellows are susceptible to that. They don't have the. So let's say I am producing antibiotic and my enemy group do not have that antibiotic. There is no resistance to that antibiotic. So what will happen? This antibiotic will start getting into those fellows. They will start dying. They will start dying. Suddenly it is not like cyanide. You just take it and you die instantly. No. Based on the concentration of the antibiotic in the medium, when the concentration of antibiotic crosses a certain critical limit, it will become lethal to the bacteria. It's called sensitizing dose and lethal dose. Sensitizing dose is when exposed to that, the bacteria will realize that something is going wrong. They start getting affected by the antibiotic. That is the sensitizing dose. The bacteria will become less functional. It is moving towards death. Lethal dose is when the concentration of antibiotic crosses that level, the bacteria will die. That is lethal dose. Lethal, L-E-T-H-A-L. Whenever we refer to something as lethal, it means deadly. Understand? So now let's say the other colony, I have produced some antibiotics. The number of people in the other colony has come down. My people are, we are all having enough resources now. We stop producing antibiotics. There were 1 million people on the other side. 999,000 people died. 1,000 people survived. 1,000 bacteria survived. They were all drowsy because of the antibiotic dose. It did not cross the lethal limit for them. So 999,000 bacteria died. 1,000 bacteria survived. And these bacteria also have plasmid. Let us assume they have plasmid. Alright. Let's say 100 of them have plasmid. 900 of them of the 1,000 don't have plasmid. So in 1 million bacteria, 999,000 bacteria died, 1,000 survived, they are exposed to the antibiotic, they are not dead yet. Of these, 100 of them have plasmid. Now these fellows who have the plasmid will start understanding the antibiotic. The plasmid will be modified to develop resistance to this antibiotic. The plasmid is modified to develop resistance against this antibiotic. The gene modification happens in the plasmid. Resistance to this particular antibiotic is developed. Once that is done, these 100 people who have now become capable of developing resistance to these antibiotics will multiply their plasmids and through conjugation transfer the plasmid to the others who don't have it. Look at survival strategies. Alright? 100 of them quickly multiply the plasmids. Conjugation. There are 3 types of gene transfer between bacteria. Conjugation, transformation, transduction. We have discussed this. Conjugation is bacteria to bacteria by development of the conjugation tube. Okay? That gene is also present on the plasmid. Alright? That gene is also present on the plasmid. The conjugation gene is also present on the plasmid. So that is the third gene. Through conjugation tube, they will transfer the plasmid to other bacteria. As soon as the bacteria without plasmid gets this plasmid, it also develops antibiotic resistance. Now, resource is there, medium is there, the resources are there, these bacteria start multiplying. My team again starts producing the antibiotic. Can that antibiotic kill them now? They have become resistant. The next time, this antibiotic will not work on them. We have been using antibiotics as a means of treatment for so long without ensuring complete course. So what we do when we take antibiotics, you are having fever, some bacterial infection, you go to the pharmacy, the pharmacist will give you 4 tablets of antibiotics, you will take it for 2 days. In 2 days the load of the bacteria in your body will come down, you will start feeling better, but all the bacteria is not eliminated from your body. So some of them are exposed to sensitizing dose. Now those bacteria which get exposed to sensitizing dose will become resistant to this antibiotic. The same bacteria infects another family member of yours. You give the same antibiotic, will it work? Resistance. We are contributing to increasing the strength of bacteria. We are making them stronger. They were using antibiotics against each other. Correct? We started using antibiotics indiscriminately against every type of bacteria. What type of bacteria do we use antibiotics against? We can use an antibiotic against a bacteria which does not have resistance to that antibiotic. So what are we doing? We are giving resistance to that antibiotic and to that bacteria. We are making it develop resistance. So bacteria are becoming multi-antibiotic resistant. That means you are identifying an antibiotic, using it indiscriminately to treat diseases. Within a few years, you are making the entire all the bacteria resistant to this particular antibiotic. This antibiotic will no longer work. Research continues, identify some other antibiotic, use it. That will also become ineffective because nature is more powerful than you. We are trying to deal with bacteria by targeting their strength. We are using the offense which bacteria have been given by nature to kill them without being sensitive to the fact that they also have a bigger ability to develop defense. In nature, the force that kills is not as stronger as the force that wants to survive. Correct, no? If you have a colony of ants, have you tried it? You take something, you take some burning thing, you light up the paper and try to kill the ants by lighting them up by fire. Will you be able to kill all the ants? You're taking a huge fire, but the drive to survive is much bigger than the drive to kill. The power to kill is not as big as the power to want to survive. Your desire to survive is bigger than the power that tries to kill you. So we win the small battles, small wars, we lose the battle. So anyways, that's extrapolating it into different dimensions. Coming back to biotechnology, do you understand what this fellow can do? Few capabilities that this fellow has. Plasmid can multiply by itself. Why will plasmid multiply is dependent on what will trigger its multiplication. What will trigger its multiplication? Its copy number. Every plasmid has a copy number which will tell how many times you can multiply it. Clear? Second, this can be transferred from one bacteria to another bacteria. Correct? This can be transferred from one bacteria to another bacteria. If it can multiply if it can multiply independent of the cell, you can make it multiply outside of the cell also. Correct? You can make it multiply outside of the cell also. Now if plasmid can be transferred from one bacteria to another bacteria by conjugation, plasmid can be transferred into bacteria by transduction also. You can push it into the bacteria. Transduction is bacteria will take it up. Transformation is bacteria will take it up. Transduction is you will push it into it like viruses do. What do viruses do? 3 ways by which genetic material can come into a bacteria. Number 1 is conjugation. Another bacteria is giving genetic material to this bacteria. It will always be beneficial because that bacteria is transferring some advantage to this bacteria, some plasmid to the bacteria. Conjugation naturally can happen. Plasmids are being transferred from one bacteria to another bacteria. Second, if you make this genetic material available in the medium and stimulate the bacteria to take it up, maybe you trigger them, you increase the porosity of the membrane, you add some, membrane is phospholipid bilayer membrane, no? It is a fluid membrane. If you can make the membrane become more porous, will it not increase the possibility of this plasmid entering into the bacteria? By transformation. Transformation is bacteria taking up genetic material that is there in the medium. Number 3, transduction. Transduction is viruses will catch hold of the bacteria, push its genetic material into it. So we can also do it. We can fire this plasmid into the bacteria. Gene gun. Biolistics. Biological ballistics. Ballistic is quickly you rush back, you get ready and come back and you feel. What do you want to choose? Fire or the frying pan? Either of the one you have to choose. Anyways, but having the teacher engagement session in the evening is more beneficial for our revision. Okay? Did you understand the power of plasmid? Plasmid understood? If you have to do genetic engineering, see ultimately it's just like this. Let's say there is a gene which will produce insulin in our cell. Correct? No? The beta cells of the pancreas have insulin producing gene being active. Let us assume, we know where the gene exactly is. We know the location of the gene on our chromosome. That is the locus. Correct? By genetic engineering, we want to produce insulin in factories. We'll take the example of insulin and understand genetic engineering process. We want to produce insulin in factories. Now, the thing is, I should take insulin gene from a human cell. I should take insulin gene from a human cell, put it into plasmid, make this plasmid multiply, increase the number of this plasmid, make a large number of bacteria take up this plasmid, make the bacteria multiply and create a huge mass of bacteria which have the plasmid with insulin production gene, with insulin gene on it. Now I will stimulate this gene by adding something which will stimulate that gene in the plasmid. Bacteria will start producing insulin, which is a protein, which will all get loaded in the medium. It is producing insulin, and that insulin is being released out into the medium by the bacteria. Protein synthesis basically. The medium has insulin. I will extract this insulin containing medium, purify this, take out only insulin, bottle it, label it, sell it, and make money. That's all we are doing now. That's all we want to do. But in every stage there are challenges. How do I know where the insulin gene is? Correct? How do I take it entirely from the DNA? I should cut it entirely. No, if I cut half of the gene, will it work? You have studied lac operon. Operon is the concept. For every gene, there is a There is a promoter gene, there is an operator gene. Correct? There is a promoter gene and an operator gene. And then there is the actual functional gene. So if you have to cut it, you have to cut this entirely and you have to fit it into the plasmid. It is not like use Fevikwik and join anything. Joining DNA fragments should happen by complementary sequences. How can you make two strands of DNA attached to each other? And once it is integrated, where to put it in the plasmid? Why will that get activated? Why will that get activated? That gene to be activated, something else should also be there, no? Why will the bacteria produce this gene, produce the product of this gene? Why will bacteria produce insulin? You put the insulin gene into the bacterial plasmid, but why should it produce insulin? To produce insulin, protein synthesis should be initiated for that gene. How do we make sure that this gene is activated? Activation of the gene. Correct? Then how do we extract it and separate? That's a simple process. Extraction and separation would be easier, right? That is the downstreaming process we talk about. So these challenges we need to tackle. Alright? Before we tackle the challenges, we will tackle the challenge of sleepiness by having a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break. 10-minute break. Those who are feeling sleepy can walk around, go to the washroom, wash your face, stretch your body. Drink water, come back, fresh. Identify the gene. See, DNA, whether it is the gene of interest, whatever gene we need to take from a particular organism. Let us look at insulin gene for reference. That is also DNA, double-stranded or single-stranded? Double-stranded DNA we have. What is plasmid? Is it double-stranded DNA or single-stranded DNA? What is it? That is also double-stranded DNA. That is also double-stranded DNA. So now, if this is the DNA strand on which maybe the sequence of this particular segment is the gene of interest. What is a gene? Basically, DNA is just a continuous sequence of nucleotide pairs. That's all, no? There are 4 nucleotides: adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. The nucleotides are pairing. There are 2 strands. There is a sugar phosphate backbone, and there are nucleotides jotting inwards. Complementary pairing happens. Adenine pairs with thymine, guanine pairs with cytosine. So if you look at gene or whatever you have to see, it is a sequence of alphabets. For our study, it is a sequence of alphabets. There are only 4 alphabets: A, T, C, G. Now these 4 alphabets in a particular sequence is what we refer to as gene. That's all. 3 of these alphabets mean amino acids. What is gene? Gene is a sequence of nucleotides, or the entire DNA is a sequence of nucleotides. Some segments of these sequences are meaningful. What is the meaning? They mean some protein. That's all. How does it get translated into protein? Another sequence of nucleotides is produced as a copy of this. Photocopy of the gene is mRNA. Now, there is a mechanism to identify that and pull the amino acids in the surroundings, join the amino acids in a sequence as given by the sequence of nucleotides. That's all, no? So, the gene on the DNA is just a segment of DNA with a particular sequence of nucleotides which has meaning. The meaning is some protein. That's all. Any gene for that matter will produce some protein. It will be copied by mRNA mRNA is the copy of the gene. It will be understood or read by the ribosomal complex. The ribosome will read it. There are mechanisms to bring amino acids and join the amino acids to form the sequence. Where to start, where to end, all of that is determined by evolutionary mechanisms. A particular sequence of nucleotides is the start signal. There are three start signals. AUG is the start signal always. There is one start signal, AUG, which will translate into methionine, the amino acid. There are three stop signals. Whenever that particular sequence is arrived at, the ribosomal complex will detach from the mRNA and the synthesis of protein will stop. That's all. Transcription, translation. So when we talk about a gene, chemically the gene is just a sequence of nucleotides. Any sequence of nucleotides, can it be a gene? Can we call any sequence of nucleotides as a gene? Can you call any sequence of nucleotides as a gene? No. You can call that as a gene which can be translated into some protein. That's all. Based on what we have identified, we know the sequence of certain genes. We may know the entire sequence, or we may know complementary sequences, similar sequences, the beginning and the end of a particular sequence, multiple segments we might have decoded. So when you overlap an available segment of DNA with a known segment of DNA, we don't know what the entire sequence is, but can we make out whether this might be the same one or not? What this might be? What can this be? Think of possibilities. What can this be? This might be a phone number. Do you know what exactly the phone number is? No. Can this sequence be the same phone number? No. Can this be the same phone number? Can you say with guarantee that both the numbers are same? In the earlier example, if I make this 8, can you say with guarantee that both the numbers are not the same? This is how we go about identifying genes. If you know the exact sequence, excellent. If you don't know the exact sequence, you have a fair idea of where the locus is. You have a fair idea of the particular sequences. The beginning of the sequence is this. At a particular distance, you need to. This is a particular sequence that we have identified. At some other distance, we know that. So corresponding correlation will tell you whether this particular gene can be the gene of interest or not. So let us not go into the process of how to identify the gene of interest. Let us start with the stage where we know where the gene of interest is. This is the segment where the gene of interest is. This is the segment where the gene of interest is. What should I do now if I want to engineer this segment? Let's say this is the insulin gene. Let us say this is the insulin gene. I know where it is present. Now what should I do? I should cut it. Can I cut it here and here? I should cut it at a little distance away from the ends of the gene, so that the entire gene with its promoter, operator and the functional gene component is present. Correct? Can I remove the promoter and operator? I should not be removing the promoter and operator. Alright? It's okay even if I remove it. Why? I'll tell you later. But I need the entire functional gene at least. I need the functional gene. Functional gene which can be incorporated into the plasmid. If there is a break in the functional gene, I will not get the product. So first challenge that I am faced with is, how do I get this? The next challenge is, where should I put it? I should put it into this. This is a circular DNA. Whichever piece I bring, whichever fragment I cut and bring, that will be a linear segment. Now, how do you fit a linear segment into a circular ring? You have to cut the ring. You have to cut this also. You have to cut this somewhere. Where will you cut it? Where will you cut it? Any of you familiar with carpentry? Any of you have carpenters at home? No carpenters. You have a carpenter at home? Who is a carpenter at home? Huh?
Father.
Father is a carpenter. Okay. Now, this is one piece of wood. This is another piece of wood. Can I join both? Can I join both of this? Can I attach both of this?
Yes, sir.
You can? Look at this and look at this. Will it be a proper attachment? You can use Fevicol and nails and fix it. But it will not fit, no? If it was like this, if it is like this, would it be convenient to make a furniture by joining these two? Can you make a stable length of wood by joining these two? How can you join these two if you want to join? Fevicol. Fevicol is required. To join these two ends, what do you need to make? You need to have overlapping pieces, no? If you have it like this, wouldn't it be easy to join? You put Fevicol here, bring them together, fix them with nails. Correct? So, can I say these two logs of wood, these two pieces of wood have stickable ends, joinable ends, ends which can join with each other, ends which can be stuck with each other. The other case I told you, what kind of ends do these two pieces have? Blunt ends. So to join the two pieces of wood, what do you prefer? To engineer wood, what do you prefer? Do you prefer stickable ends or blunt ends? Stickable ends. Here you can use Fevicol, but when you have to join DNA, you have to bring in hydrogen bonding. Correct? Hydrogen bonding between the nucleotides. If there are complementary sequences, they will automatically bind. Correct? If it is a double strand, if you consider this as DNA, this is one strand and this is one strand. How many strands are there in this piece? How many strands are there in this piece? It is a single strand. Remove this. How many strands are there in this piece? Single strand. How many strands are there in this piece? Single strand. If the nucleotides here and the nucleotides here are complementary, when they come closer, will they stick to each other? Will they make bonds with each other and form a complete strand? Those ends are stickable ends. When it comes to DNA, we call it sticky ends. Sticky ends are those ends of the DNA fragment which have exposed nucleotides. When there are two strands, When there are two strands with nucleotides complementarily binding to each other in the entire length of the strand, can you bring in another strand and attach to this? You need to have an exposed segment, no? Only when a segment of the DNA is made to be single-stranded with the sequence of nucleotides exposed. If you have a complementary sequence, you can attach to that. If you don't have a complementary sequence, it will still not get attached. So if you want to join the ends of DNA, the next challenge is cutting is okay, you cut it. Whatever is the mechanism, we'll see. We'll cut it. But to join, you need to create sticky ends. That means a part of this segment of the DNA should be made single-stranded. The cut should be made single-stranded. You understand? So what is the first challenge? The first challenge is cutting the gene of interest. The second challenge is cutting the plasmid. The third challenge is making the gene of interest bind to the plasmid. If this is the gene of interest and this is the plasmid, if both of these fellows have to come together and join, what do you need to have? You need to have sticky ends is fine, but the sequence here should be complementary to the sequence here. Isn't it? Otherwise, even if you bring them together, you will not be able to bind them together. Is that clear? Is that clear? So not only creating sticky ends, you need to create sticky ends which are complementary to each other in the gene of interest and the vector. Double complication. Sticky ends you have to create, and then you have to have those sticky ends complementary to each other, so that when they come closer to each other, they bind them. How do we do that? Again, bacteria saves us. No bigger friend of human beings than bacteria. Okay? How? Bacteria produces another thing. Again, their defense. Their offense this is. See, if you want to destroy somebody, one is antibiotic, you produce antibiotic, you attack the opposition colony and you kill them. Another way of killing the bacteria is destroy its DNA. Correct? No? Your colony is in fight with another colony and you decide to destroy their DNA. Chop off the DNA. Bacteria have developed the ability to produce a type of enzymes, produce some enzymes which will go and attack the DNA and chop off the DNA. They will chop off the DNA. If you chop off the DNA, there is no genetic material left inside the bacteria in which you have chopped off the DNA. Made pieces of the DNA. So that bacteria dies. It cannot replicate. If a bacteria cannot replicate, if it cannot multiply, it is dead. Over. What is that enzyme? Restriction endonucleases. Restriction endonucleases. Type 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 types of restriction endonucleases. Classes. Class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. 4 types of restriction endonucleases are produced. Now, how do they destroy? How do these bacteria produce RN and destroy? Some RNs, class 1 RNs, they will just chop off the DNA, create blunt ends, and not only blunt ends, they methylate the end of the DNA. They chop the DNA and methylate it, add a methyl group to the end of the DNA. So even if you leave them together, leave the chopped off pieces together, the DNA fragments cannot bind together again. Over. Alright, cut the DNA. It is like doing vasectomy. Cut the vas deferens and crush the ends, so that even the 2 ends of the tubes, there should not be continuity. One type of restriction enzyme does that. Another type of restriction enzyme, type 3, creates blunt ends and very far away from each other. There are ends where these restriction enzymes attack is also identified. Specific regions they will attack. They will not go and just attack anywhere. They will attack specific types of sequences on the DNA. What sequences? What sequences? Palindromic sequences. What are palindromic sequences? From both sides, it reads the same. Tell me some palindromic sequence. Huh? What? Malayalam is a palindrome. Malayalam is a palindrome. From both sides, it means the same. Tell me nucleotide palindromes. Okay. Some palindrome. Tell what is given in the book only. GAATTC. So AATTC. Now you see this C T T A. Correct? This is a complementary sequence. No? This is strand 1. This is strand 2. This is strand 1 and strand 2. Let us say goes on like this, goes on like this. When it chops off, it will identify these sequences and cut it here in the middle of the sequence. Restriction endonucleases 2, REN2, one of the restriction endonucleases E. coli 1, Escherichia coli 1, restriction enzyme 1, cuts the DNA sequences between G and A in this palindromic sequence. One strand is cut here, another strand is cut here. You understand? So here, this will be the sequence, and another strand will be like this. Can you see that? These two fragments, cuts here and here. So you pull this away, this will be sequence like this. This will be sequence like this. Here it will be CTTAA. Here it is AATTC. So you bring both these strands close to each other. This is complementary to this, so it will bind. So with restriction enzymes, what we should know? Bacteria produces this enzyme to cut the DNA of other bacteria and make the DNA useless. So we have identified this. And we are using this to cut. Now, consider this is the gene of interest and this is the plasmid. One problem that we had, how do we make the gene of interest get integrated with the plasmid? That problem can be solved if we use the same restriction enzyme on both the gene of interest and the plasmid. You understand? The gene, a particular restriction enzyme will act on a particular palindromic sequence. So now what do we need? We need a plasmid with a particular sequence that is favorable for the integration of the gene of interest, and also a recognition site for a particular restriction enzyme. On the other hand, the gene of interest on either side of it should have the recognition site for the same restriction enzyme, so that the sticky ends produced in this fragment and the sticky ends produced here when you cut the plasmid are the same, are complementary, and when you bring this with the plasmid, it binds. You understand? Cut the plasmid and cut the gene of interest using the same restriction enzyme. And what class of restriction enzyme should we use? We can use only class 2 restriction enzymes. Class 2 restriction enzymes are the ones which will produce sticky ends. And the cleavage, the cleaving of the palindromic sequence by the class 2 restriction enzymes is consistent. Class 1, 3, 4 will have one of the three problems. One or more of the three problems. One or more of these three problems. Number one, they don't produce sticky ends. They might produce blunt ends, not conducive or not favorable for attaching the gene of interest. Second, some of them might methylate the ends, so not making the end available for binding, making the ends unbindable. The third one, not being consistent about where they will break. They identify the palindromic sequence. They might break sometimes here in the palindromic sequence, and at other times they might break the palindromic sequence at another place. So if there is inconsistency of where the enzyme acts on the palindromic sequence, you will not be able to predict whether you can integrate it or not. So three things are required to select the enzyme. Number one, the enzyme should produce sticky ends. Number two, it should not methylate the ends. And number three, the enzyme should break the palindrome at the same sequence at all times. Consistency in the action of the enzyme where it breaks. So see the complication. First, you need to know where the gene of interest is. You need to, on the other hand, know what all class 2 restriction enzymes we know. We have studied, no? Human beings have studied these enzymes, and we have made a list of enzymes. For every enzyme, you know what is the palindromic sequence that they will act on. So you identify the gene. Check for all the restriction sites. Check for all the restriction enzyme sites. So this enzyme can act here, another enzyme can act somewhere else. Shortlist the enzymes which can be used. The enzymes which will act on either side of the gene of interest. So if you have the restriction site on one side of the gene of interest, not useful. How will you break the other side? So the enzyme identification site should be on either side. It should not be within the gene. It should not be too far away from the gene. It should not be too close to the functional site. So many boxes you need to tick. And then you will shortlist the gene of interest and the possible enzymes that can be used on this gene of interest to isolate the gene of interest. Now once you make that list, parallelly you will identify the plasmids. You know the plasmids, what all plasmids you have already studied. You will look at the repository of plasmids, your directory of plasmids, which plasmid has what restriction sites. So do we have any plasmid which can be treated with any of these enzymes which can isolate our gene of interest? Shortlist them. Now the next thing is, the plasmid should be acting at a site which can be identifiable in terms of its product. So the restriction site on the plasmid should be inside some gene whose expression you can identify. So you remove that gene and put our gene of interest. Then whatever gene was present earlier in the plasmid, that will not express, it will express our gene. So that marker should be there inside the plasmid, and the restriction site should be inside the marker. It should be some antibiotic resistance gene. So that you remove the antibiotic resistance gene and put the insulin gene. Then those bacteria which take up the insulin gene will not have antibiotic resistance. That means when you add antibiotics into the medium, those which will grow well have antibiotic resistance, and those which will not grow well do not have antibiotic resistance, which will tell us those fellows have taken the insulin gene. So in those bacteria, how will you know which bacteria has taken up insulin gene? You understand the complications? So many things have to be falling into place. That is why biotechnology is very expensive to run. Biotechnology companies, since 25 years, we are listening to the fact, we are listening to claims that biotechnology will be a boom. You might also have heard about it, right? In the 90s, in the early 2000s, in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was IT boom. Anybody who became decent engineers in the late 90s and early 2000s made loads of money. They got opportunities to go abroad, make money in dollars, travel. Now, the technology boom has moved to artificial intelligence and machine learning. Artificial intelligence, machine learning has become the next boom now, moving forward. Biotechnology is a boom waiting to happen for a long time. Why could not it boom like IT? Because there are so many factors involved, and it involves living organisms. It involves microorganisms. So many variables. Unlike IT, you have a problem, there is a fan. There is a fan. It is off now. I want it to turn on, turn off based on my presence here and based on the surrounding temperature. I want the fan to run if the surrounding temperature is 24 degrees or higher, 24 degrees Celsius or higher, and only when I am in this region. That is the problem statement that we define. You know the variables, you know what needs to be altered. You need to have a thermostat which will sense the temperature, and you need to have a sensor, maybe an infrared sensor, which will identify the presence of warm objects, warm moving objects are same, no? The sticky ends are same. What if they get attached in the reverse order? There are mechanisms, there are processes to ensure that does not happen as well. So let's not keep going one step beyond and make it very complicated. So integration or insertion of the gene of interest into the vector. Next, making the vector get into a suitable host. Who will host that vector? Who will host the vehicle? Who is the vector here? Plasmid. Plasmid has our gene of interest. The gene of interest can be identified with antibiotic resistance or lactose, whatever. Now this vector or the plasmid has to be put into bacteria. What mechanisms can we use? Some transformation mechanisms and transduction mechanisms. So in the medium, you send shock waves into the medium. So bacterial membrane porosity improves. Plasmid can get into the bacteria. Or use gene gun. Keep firing the gene gun with the plasmid in it. What if more than one plasmid gets into the bacteria? What if more than one plasmid gets into the bacteria? Do you have to see and target and hit only one bullet? One plasmid into one bacteria? What if more than one plasmid is fired into a bacteria? What will happen? Will the plasmid become non-functional? What might happen? What is the nature of replication plasmids have? Is the replication of plasmid dependent on the bacterial replication? Plasmid can multiply by itself. Independently it can replicate. Should a bacteria have only one plasmid? If it has multiple copies of the same plasmid, what will it do? It will transfer it to some bacteria which does not have a plasmid by conjugation. That's all. So you want as many bacteria in the medium as possible to take up the plasmid. So you take the gene gun, load up the gene gun with plasmids and fire into the medium. N number of bacteria will take up the plasmid. There can be X number of bacteria with more than one plasmid getting into them. Now those fellows will sense that there is more than one plasmid conjugation tube is produced, some bacteria which does not have the plasmid is given the plasmid. You are finding they are also transferring. It's all of the same colony, no? They are all the same kind of bacteria. So after a period of time, a good number of bacteria have the plasmid. Before you go into production, the next step is identify only those which have the plasmid and remove the rest. You have to remove the rest. You have to have a clean culture of bacteria which have the plasmid with your gene of interest. We don't want to feed the bacteria which don't have the capacity to produce insulin. So identifying the bacteria with gene of interest. Identify them, take them, and then supply them with loads of nutrients. Lots of nutrients. Give them, eat. What will they do if you give them lots of nutrients? What will they do? They will write a thank you note. Then what do? They will multiply. So you have a medium full of bacteria with the gene of interest, insulin gene in our example. Then trigger that gene. There is some antibiotic. If let's say we have put the gene into the antibiotic gene portion, presence of that antibiotic will activate the gene. Correct? The promoter and the operator will get activated in the presence of the antibiotic. Let's say ampicillin is the antibiotic resistance gene. Presence of ampicillin will activate the gene and it will bring about translation, transcription, translation, everything will go on, producing the protein associated with that gene segment. But what we have done, we have removed ampicillin portion and inserted insulin portion into that. This fellow is getting, promoter is getting activated by presence of ampicillin. Bacteria is triggering the production of ampicillin resistance protein. But in that place, we have put our gene. They are producing insulin. So continuous production. You are not putting ampicillin to the extent of killing the bacteria. You are putting ampicillin to the extent of stimulating the antibiotic resistance gene. See, tricking back. This is the process. Now, take out your book and you will see the sequence. Page number 167. Look at the diagram. We look at only diagrams. Or start from the first page. We will look at all the highlighted words. In page number 163, genetic engineering is the first term. Is it okay? We'll look into that. Genetic engineering is the technique of altering chemistry of genetic material to introduce these into host organisms and just change the phenotype of the host organisms. Genetic engineering is changing the genetic composition of a particular host. Bioprocess engineering is what I told. Having the gene of bacteria with the gene of interest and stimulating it to produce what you want. Bioprocess, produce the products of your interest. What is a recombinant DNA? Don't read anything beyond that. Just tell me what is a recombinant DNA.
Modified after was introduced with the plasmid.
That's all. A DNA which is modified by virtue of something being removed and something else being introduced into it. In our case, plasmid with insulin gene is recombinant DNA. How do we do that? We saw. Gene cloning and gene transfer. Cloning means what? What do you mean by cloning? Making copies. Cloning is making copies. When I say gene cloning, you took the insulin gene from the human cell, amplified it, increased its number, put it into the plasmid of bacteria, and you made millions of copies of it. You made millions of copies of it. That is gene cloning. Okay? Gene transfer.
Transfer to the host.
You have taken the gene which belongs to one particular organism and transferred it to something else which is not related to that. Insulin is not required for bacteria. But you are taking insulin gene from human beings and transferring it into the genetic makeup of bacteria. That is gene transfer. Next is origin of replication. Okay? ORI region, origin of replication. ORI region is present in the plasmid also. See, when we talk about DNA duplication, DNA replication, where does it begin? The DNA replication begins at the origin of replication, wherever the beginning of replication happens. In the host also, in plasmid also, the replication of the plasmid happens in the ORI region, origin of replication region. Copy number, gene copy number, all of these are associated with that origin of replication. Alright? So can we have a restriction enzyme acting on the origin of replication of a plasmid? Can we use a restriction enzyme which will break the origin of replication segment? We can't. You might have an enzyme which will act on the gene of interest, to isolate the gene of interest. You don't find any plasmid which has the same enzyme recognition site. But you find one plasmid whose recognition site is in the origin of replication region. Can you use it? Can you use that plasmid? You can't use that plasmid because if you destroy the origin of replication, what is the point of introducing the gene into the plasmid? The plasmid cannot multiply. The plasmid cannot multiply. If the plasmid cannot multiply, it becomes useless for our production. Okay? So origin of replication should not be acted upon. Questions have come on this. Which plasmid you should not use? If the restriction recognition site, restriction enzyme recognition site is in the origin of replication, you cannot use it. Can you use it if it is in the promoter gene segment or the operator gene segment of the operon of the gene? Can you use it? Lac operon is in bacteria only, no? We study lac operon in bacteria only. Let's say, are you all understanding or is it too slow, too fast, too slow, too slow, fast?
The pace is quite fast.
Pace is okay? Okay, see, all three possibilities are there. Somebody is feeling it is too slow, somebody is feeling it is too fast, somebody is feeling it is okay. Have you seen 3 Idiots movie? All of them go to eat roti in Raju's house. He says, no, एक तरफ तो पापा की वो his illness, on the other side mother is crying. हम क्या करें यार? हमने सोचा छोड़ो यार, मटर पर concentrate करें. So unless somebody is not understanding at all, I have to somehow try and keep balancing the place. Let's say on this plasmid, this is the plasmid. Let us say this is the origin of replication region. Origin of replication region. We cannot have a restriction site here. Because if you have the restriction site here, the entire plasmid becomes useless. Let us say this is the ampicillin resistance gene. This is the ampicillin resistance gene. In this gene, for every gene, you have studied the operon concept. There has to be a promoter segment, operator segment, and the functional gene segment. Let us say this is the promoter segment, this is the operator segment, and this is the functional gene segment. Functional gene segment. Can we have, see, promoter segment identifies the trigger. Promoter segment is the one which will recognize the substrate which will stimulate this gene. When the promoter segment identifies the presence of the, let's say in this case, when ampicillin is present in the medium, promoter gene will identify ampicillin. Then it will open up the ribosome binding site on the operator. Ribosome binding site will be present on the operator segment. So that is where the ribosome will come and attach. Once attachment is done, it will start moving forward. It will start moving forward, transcribing this segment, functional gene segment. So if the promoter is damaged, will this gene function? If the promoter is damaged, can this gene function? If the operator is damaged, can this gene function? If the promoter is damaged, then you cannot activate this gene. If the operator is damaged, you cannot transcribe this gene. So translation cannot happen. So where should the restriction site be? The restriction site should be in this segment, in the functional gene segment. So if you cut the functional gene, ampicillin resistance protein will not be produced. Instead of ampicillin resistance gene, you will put insulin gene here. Correct? Insulin gene is put here. When ampicillin is present in the medium, promoter is activated, it will open up the ribosome binding site of the operator. Ribosome will start copying this entire segment. Transcription of the entire segment. After transcription, translation happens automatically. So mRNA transcribes, mRNA production transcription happens, then ribosome binds. Ribosomal, I'm telling ribosome, you are telling yes. Transcription enzymes will bind to the operator and the transcription happens. Once the mRNA is produced, outside of that, ribosome will bind to it and it will translate into protein and insulin is produced. When it translates into protein, the ribosome does not know whether it is ampicillin, insulin, rifampicin, doesn't matter for the ribosome. All the ribosome wants is an mRNA, it will attach to it, it will do the process, finish, done, over. So because you have inserted insulin into the ampicillin segment, ampicillin is what will trigger this. If you add sugar into this medium, because insulin gene is there, the sugar will not stimulate this gene. This gene will get activated in the presence of what? This gene will get activated in the presence of ampicillin. Because this is an ampicillin resistance gene segment, promoter identifies ampicillin. When there is ampicillin, it should produce ampicillin resistance protein so that it will protect this bacteria. What we have done, we have removed the ampicillin resistance gene segment, inserted insulin gene segment into it. So promoter gets activated when there is ampicillin in the medium, transcription happens of the gene, translation happens, bacteria is supposed to produce ampicillin resistance protein, but because we have changed the gene segment, it will be producing insulin or the gene of interest. You understand? So, restriction sites cannot be present in the promoter region, it cannot be present in the operator region, it cannot be present in the origin of replication, it has to be present in the functional component of a gene, and that gene should be something whose presence or absence can be identified. That is a marker gene. So many factors. The ampicillin resistance is a marker. Presence of ampicillin will reduce its growth if the gene has taken the insulin, if it has insulin gene. If it has resistance, it has not taken up. So you should be able to identify. Marker is important to identify. Is this clear? So origin of replication, we saw. Plasmid is the next one that is marked. Understood plasmid? Molecular scissors, restriction enzymes. Plasmids are vectors. Restriction enzymes. Restriction endonuclease, page number 165. Just look at the bold phrases. Recognition sequence. What is recognition sequence? What is the recognition sequence in the context of restriction enzyme? The palindromic sequence which the restriction enzyme identifies and goes and breaks. That is the recognition sequence. Nucleases, exonuclease, endonuclease. Three terms are there. Nucleases means what? Enzymes which will break down nucleic acids. Exonucleases will break it from the end. Endonucleases will break it in the center, in the middle of the sequences. Restriction enzymes are exonucleases or endonucleases? Endonucleases. Alright. Palindromic nucleotide sequence. Do you understand what a palindromic nucleotide sequence is? Yes, we discussed that. Look at the diagram, figure 9.1. Steps in the formation of recombinant DNA by action of restriction endonuclease. Action of restriction enzyme. Enzyme cuts both DNA strands at the same site, vector DNA and foreign DNA. Foreign DNA is, in our example, insulin. Vector DNA is plasmid. Vector DNA is plasmid. So you see sticky ends are formed. Recombinant DNA by the joining of the sticky ends. Again, 9.2 also talks about the same thing. Foreign DNA, you break it down, vector DNA or plasmid is broken down. Same restriction enzyme cutting both foreign DNA and vector DNA at specific point. To join them, you will use the enzyme ligase. Ligases will bring about joining of the backbone, ribose sugar backbone. Alright, the backbone is joined by ligases. Hydrogen bonding happens, it's a weak bond. Hydrogen bonding is a weak bond, it's a spontaneous bond. You don't need ligases to bring about hydrogen bonding. Alright. So ligases join foreign DNA to plasmid, recombinant DNA molecule is produced. Transformation happens. Transformation is what there? What do you mean by transformation? In this diagram they have mentioned transformation. Meaning what? Are you pushing the DNA into the, are you pushing the vector into the host? Are you pushing it? What is mentioned there? Transformation. If transformation is mentioned, the reference is to DNA being taken up by the host. You are not pushing it. You might create conditions for the host to take up the DNA. See, three ways of putting in DNA into bacteria. Conjugation, bacteria to bacteria, direct transfer. Transformation, picking up what is available in the surroundings. Transduction is pushing it. Okay? So it's like you transfer money from your account to my account directly, conjugation. Money from your pocket falls on the street, I pick it up. So the first one is conjugation. This is the money has fallen from your pocket, I pick it up and put it in my pocket. Alright. Transformation. You forcefully push it into my pocket. Transduction. Now instead of money, in the first case it is bank-to-bank transfer, conjugation. Can it be beneficial or harmful or either of that? Would bank-to-bank transfer, I transfer money to your account. Would it be beneficial for you or harmful for you? Or it might be beneficial or harmful? What would you say? 100% beneficial. How I got the money, all of that is my problem. But if it comes to your account, it's good for you. That is conjugation, always beneficial. Second, some packet, some envelope with something inside it has fallen down. I pick it up, put it in your pocket. Would it be beneficial or harmful? Depends. Depends on what is there in the packet. If it is money, no problem. If it is LSD, if it is brown sugar, unrefined cane sugar also is brown. But I am talking about, okay, what if it is hashish, marijuana, packet has it, somebody sees it, I am done for life. Narcotics case not available. So, transformation may be beneficial or harmful. Picking up something that is available in the surroundings. The third one, you are a 100% drug dealer. Okay, you are a drug dealer, known drug dealer. You are the drug lord. Okay. After who's that? Narcos fellow. Who's that? Pablo Escobar. After Pablo Escobar, you are Pablo, some other one. You come and push a packet into my pocket. Can it be beneficial? It will 100% be harmful. Transduction. Virus pushing its genetic material into bacteria. Bacteria to bacteria transfer is like bank transfer. Transfer of plasmid, always beneficial. Conjugation. Transformation is picking up a packet that is there on the street. Some genetic material DNA is available in the medium, bacteria picks it up. Can be beneficial, can be harmful depending on what is there in the packet. What DNA sequences are there, what will it produce when it gets translated, all that. Transduction is a drug dealer putting a packet of some white color powder into your packet, into your pocket. 100% harmful transduction done by viruses. So what is it? What is mentioned here? Transformation. Transformation means what? You have the bacteria and you have the host and the vector in the same medium. You will create conditions for the host to take a vector. You are not pushing it. The bacteria is taking it. Transformation. We will use transduction process also, but in this case beneficial to the bacteria by gene gun. Alright, next. See, all small things, just one word there in the NCERT. To know it thoroughly, you need to know everything. You need to know the background of it, you need to know the story behind it. So this is a small, big book. There will be big, small books. Lot of nonsense in it. Too much of content, too little of context. This is full of context, compressed content. If you want to understand the context, you will have to expand the understanding in your mind. So this is more than enough. I love NCERT. Because what is simple is easy, clear. The more you make it, the more voluminous you make without realizing the utility of it, more complicated life becomes. Everything should be brought down to simple actionables. That is the saying, no? A bird in hand is better than two in the bush. Something like that. Next. Separation and isolation of DNA fragments. Gel electrophoresis. What do we do? See, this comes down to the problem of isolating the gene of interest. We cut down the gene of interest. We use the restriction enzyme. Will the restriction enzyme have its recognition site only around the gene of interest? Or it can have recognition sites at multiple locations? DNA is long, you will not pick up only chromosome number 2 and cut only the locus P51. No. You will use the restriction enzyme on the entire DNA of the cell. Correct? You take the cell, you will use lipases, you will use proteases, you will use ribonucleases, you will use polymerases, not the polymerase, this one. What do you call the enzymes which will break down carbohydrates? Amylases. You will use amylases, proteases, lipases, ribonucleases, enzymes. You will not use deoxyribonuclease. You will not use DNA ligating enzyme, breaking enzymes. So it will break down everything else, and what is left is DNA. You add chilled ethanol, DNA will get isolated by itself. Okay? Chilled ethanol. Ethanol is what people drink, alcohol. Chilled ethanol will make even the DNA happy. So DNA will automatically get isolated. And it kind of expresses its happiness, and you will be able to notice it. Okay? Chilled ethanol. Then you take out the DNA and you treat it with restriction endonuclease enzyme. So wherever it finds the palindromic sequences in the entire DNA, all the 46 chromosomes, the enzyme will break it piece. You will have a large number of DNA pieces. They don't come with a stamp. You zoom it in electron microscope and it will be written insulin. Not like that, no? Everything will look the same. All that you will have is multiple pieces of DNA. How do you know which is the piece that you have to take? Alright. DNA is a charged particle. DNA is a charged particle. You run it through electrophoresis, gel electrophoresis. Gel electrophoresis is you take an agarose gel plate on one